Hello again, my name's Chris and today I'll be reviewing the living daylights out of a brand new Sigma lens, their neat little 45mm f2.8 DG-DN Contemporary. It's a full frame autofocus lens which is currently just for Sony's mirrorless E-mount cameras and for L-mount cameras, although I'd be surprised if it doesn't eventually make it onto Canon and Nikon's new full frame mirrorless systems too. I'd like to thank Sigma UK for loaning me a copy of this lens for a week or so, but as usual, this is a totally independent review. 45mm is a beautiful focal length on a full frame camera, closely resembling the perspective of the human eye, neither wide angle nor telephoto, perfect for everyday photography. On an APS-C camera, the crop factor means that you're drawn in a lot closer to your subject, making it better for subject or portrait photography. The maximum aperture of f2.8 is not very bright for a prime lens. The idea is that the darker maximum aperture can make the lens smaller and cheaper. Well, while its size is indeed nice and compact, its price of $550 in the US or £500 in the UK is definitely on the expensive side, so let's look more closely and see what it is we're paying for here. Well, for starters, it's immediately apparent that you're paying for build quality. I can tell you this is one of the highest quality lenses to handle that I've ever tested. It feels completely solid and metallic, smooth to touch and tightly assembled. It's based on a metal lens mount with a thin weather sealing gasket. You also get an auto manual focus switch and an aperture ring with perfect clicks to it. A lovely feature, although if you don't want to control your aperture that way, you can just set it to A mode. The focus ring turns incredibly smoothly, being very well damped, and it works with the focus motor very responsively. The lens's autofocus motor works silently, accurately, and quite quickly, as you can see here. Video makers will be glad to know that the lens exhibits very little focus breathing, only zooming in slightly as you focus more closely. The lens has a small filter size of 55mm and it comes with a smartly designed metallic lens hood, again one of the nicest of its kind I've seen. It doesn't have image stabilization, but overall, build quality was clearly a major priority for Sigma here, and I couldn't rate it any higher, it's simply something else. When a lens is built this nicely, you just want to use it all the time. Well, that's all very nice, but more important is image quality. Let's start by testing it on my full frame camera, a 42MP Sony a7R II. At f2.8, we see great sharpness in the middle of the image, although contrast could be a bit higher. Over in the corners, we continue to see very sharp, clear image quality. Stop down to f4 for more sharpness and contrast in the corners, and back in the middle, a spectacular image. Stop down to f5.6 and the middle stays perfect, and the corners look very slightly sharper again. It stays this sharp down to f11. So overall, it's excellent image quality on full frame, although contrast might have been a little punchier at f2.8. Let's mount this lens onto an APS-C camera now, my little 24MP Sony a5100. It's the same story here, really. Excellent image quality in the middle, straight from f2.8, although contrast could be just slightly better. The corners are just good here. Stop down to f4 for extra contrast and a little more sharpness there. Stop down to f5.6 and then f8 for further extra improvement. So it's quite a satisfying performance on APS-C. Alright, let's look at distortion and vignetting on a full frame camera. Normally these are nicely corrected by your camera, but if you turn those corrections off, we can see the true performance. Some pincushion distortion is noticeable here, and strong vignetting at f2.8. The vignetting slowly retreats if you stop down to f4, f5.6, f8. So really you should keep your corrections turned on in your camera here. Next, close-up image quality. The good news is that the lens can focus impressively closely to your subject, all the way down to 24cm. The bad news is that close-up image quality is disastrous, with an unprecedented level of ghosting clearly visible at f2.8. It's reduced at f4 and at f5.6, gone. Still, a nasty surprise there. Let's see now how the lens performs against bright light. It's a great performance here. What little flaring there is very soft, and contrast remains strong. Let's take a quick look at chroma levels then. At f2.8, bright light in the corners of your images will carry a little chroma smearing, but stop down to f4 for it to noticeably clear up. Finally, bokeh. f2.8 might not be a very bright maximum aperture, but on a 45mm lens you can still get some clear background separation with it. The quality of those backgrounds is almost always fairly soft. In all my testing, I couldn't provoke any busyness or ugliness there. Overall then, well, this is a lens with truly outstanding build quality and very good image quality, and it's particularly well aligned to street photography, I think. The most serious competition it faces comes from the Samyang 45mm f1.8. The Sigma lens is a little smaller and has far nicer build quality in every way. It looks a lot cooler too, for what that's worth. The two lenses have very similar image quality at the same apertures. The Samyang lens though has of course a far brighter maximum aperture and costs far less money. For those reasons, I think most people will gravitate towards the Samyang lens, which offers greater creative possibilities. But the Sigma lens is a lot easier to fall in love with, it just handles so beautifully. The Sigma 45mm f2.8 is a lens I would personally never buy, because I'd want a brighter maximum aperture than f2.8. But then again, it's definitely the nicest lens I would personally never buy. And for anyone who wants a gorgeous little optic and doesn't need a bright maximum aperture, this is the one for you, and it comes recommended.